very warm welcome to you all. And Canaan presents the Canadian Universities and Colleges Conclave, which is a part of the Canaan webinar series. And it's on for 3 days. Today is the second session. Now we'll have another session at 5:30 evening as well. A quick short introduction to who's Canaan. We at Canaan are pioneers in career counseling for students headed to Canada, and we've been doing that for the past quarter century, I would say. Do listen to the videos on our website and hear what top universities and colleges have to say about Canaan counselors, Canaan services, as well as all about their programs and what eligibility criteria they have and what flexibilities they've managed for the COVID-19 situation, their scholarship options, all of that. Now, Canaan has been very special to Canada because we've been sending a very large number of quality students to Canada for so many years. Anurag Sandhu, our CEO, is an ICCRC member in Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, which means that he's a regulated Canadian government licensed consultant for guidance on visa and PR processes. And as a student, of course, you'd be applying for study permit for which you need guidance only from a licensed immigration consultant. But in addition to that, most students who are headed to Canada are definitely looking for Canadian study, after which they need some Canadian work experience, and then looking for permanent residency, which they would qualify for if they've got some Canadian work experience. So for choosing their PR options, they need to know what kind of programs they should go for, which is the most suitable thing for them, what is the most suitable provincial nominee program which could be right for them to choose for their permanent residency option, and a whole lot of other things which only an immigration consultant, a licensed immigration consultant, should be offering you advice on. And at Canaan, we can claim this rare combination of long and licensed experience of promoting Canadian education, Canadian careers, and pathways to permanent residency. So our advice to you always would be, please do not seek visa assistance or PR guidance from unlicensed agents. Canaan is one of the largest overseas education consulting companies with a network of offices in over 30 locations across India and in Toronto, Canada. We give career advice to over 2 lakh students and professionals each year and process about 75,000 applications for university and college admissions in Canada. Our artificial intelligence-driven platform, iApply, has contributed significantly to these numbers this year. In fact, we are extremely grateful to our university and college partners who have been supporting us through this pandemic. And actually, we've done about 90 odd live webinars with question and answer sessions, as well as shot for about 150 odd videos with the universities and colleges. And that has helped us to reach out to such a large number of students. In fact, even this conclave, we've had almost 10,000 students have registered on our website to attend these 8 hot sessions. Our free services include live interaction with delegates through webinars, visits, web fairs, conclaves, office visits, what have you, career counseling, admission services, getting application fee waivers where possible, visa guidance, providing scholarship options where possible, and interview preparation where it's needed. So why this conclave? As leaders in promoting Canadian education for 2.5 decades, this conclave by Canaan is a logical step towards removing myths and clarifying a lot of frequently asked questions that have been confusing students all along for a lack of regulated guidance and licensed consultants in India. We thank all our panelists for taking time out of their time zones and sharing this responsibility with us in reaching out to students and parents on 8 hot topics related to Canadian education. While promoting Canadian education with a global career perspective, Canadian education and skill development planning for Indian students and working professionals. And the topic for this session is how much has technology in international recruitment and education changed and been a lifesaver post the pandemic? Also, what's the future like for students? And so I now move on to our panelists for today, and I will be announcing them in an alphabetical order. Bagir Rizayev, Associate Director for South Asia, University Canada West. A London Met UK graduate of MBA, Bagir helps people to have access to international education by supporting talented people in their life-changing opportunities. Brand and market development are his forte. He has worked within Sub-Saharan, MENA, and South Asian market regions to promote various study abroad destinations. Welcome, Bagir. Our next
Thank you.
panelist,
Thank
Dylan
you.
Holmson, Associate Director, Recruitment Solutions, Grok Global, Canada. A Canadian national, Dylan has nearly 10 years of experience supporting higher education student recruitment from across Asia, with a particular focus towards North American universities and colleges. Originally from Winnipeg, Canada, Dylan has lived in New Delhi for the past 5 years. Nice to have you on board, Dylan.
Thank you, Ganga. Pleasure to be here.
Panelist 3, Marc Andre, International Market Development Manager, Asia, University of Ottawa. Marc Andre is MED, is the Market Development Manager, Asia, for the Strategic Enrollment Office at the University of Ottawa. Currently in his 10th year with the SEM office, he has held many different positions, including with the admissions office in national recruitment, and has now been working on the international front for about 5 years. Also, Marc Andre is a proud 3-time graduate of University of Ottawa in the fields of psychology, education, and educational counseling. Using his extensive personal and professional experiences, he works in collaboration with partners abroad and on campus in the development and implementation of various student recruitment strategies focusing on student diversity. Good to have you on board, Marc.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Panelist number 4, Simon Jacobs, Regional Sales Director, South Asia, Navitas, Canada. With 20 years of sales and marketing experience and in the industry since 2009, Simon has responsibility for managing Navitas partner relations and student recruitment from South Asia to campuses in the UK, Netherlands, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, UAE, Canada, and the United States. Welcome on board, Simon.
Thank you, Ganga. Good to be here.
Panelist number 5, Vinay Chaudhary, CEO, Worldwide EduConnect Incorporate. Vinay is the founder and CEO of Worldwide EduConnect, a marketing and recruitment services company that supports 13 Canadian public institutions in South Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The company operates through its offices in Toronto, New Delhi, and Nairobi. He also manages 2 startups, Maple Assist, which develops mobile applications for student services, and Stu Homes, which provides accommodation to international students in Ontario. Vinay is the co-founder of India-Canada Alumni Network, ICANN, an umbrella organization that represents all alumni of Canadian institutions that are living in India. Vinay is an engineer from India and has completed his MBA from Ivy School of Business, Western University, Canada. He's also a proud recipient of an honorary diploma from Fanshawe. Good to have you here, Vinay.
Thank you, Ganga, and look forward to the discussions today.
Thank you. Panelist number 6, Ravin Sandhu, founder iApply at Canaan. Ravin Sandhu started his BCom honors from Sriram College of Commerce, SRCC, New Delhi. After studying for a year, he transferred to McGill University, Canada, where he completed his bachelor's degree specializing in marketing and finance. After a couple of years of experience as a corporate sales specialist, he joined Canaan to set up its technology platform, iApply. Good to have you here, Ravin.
Same likewise. Thank you.
Okay, so great to have you all panelists. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing session. Students, you can continue to ask your questions. Please click on the chat button on your screen, type in your WhatsApp number, name, and the city that you're located in, as well as your question. An expert Canaan counselor closest to your location will contact you, and if your question is absolutely unique, we will pick it up for one of the panelists to answer. Thank you for joining in the conclave, and we now move on to the conclave. I shall start with the questions. So it's all about today's students and their parents. How much of technology should they be ready to embrace? The digital transformation is no longer an option, but is now clearly the future. Therefore, how fast will the international education sector, both in terms of student recruitment platforms and also the delivery channels of online education, be able to adapt to the new world is the hot topic. That will shape the next few years to come. Perhaps the biggest immediate challenge of 2020 was the mass shift of so much of our lives and work online. In a few weeks, we moved fast to create a flexible, responsive online service, which gave our students immense confidence towards their future, with student feedback crucially driving online innovation and change. The ability to listen to the students was key. Watch this superb session with our experts, giving you insights into the importance of agility, adaptability, leadership and innovation, thinking outside of the subject box, all with the use of technology. Ravin, my first question is to you as founder of iApply. How did the artificial intelligence technology platform iApply step in to meet this immediate challenge for student recruitment? Did students love the new technology? And what is the future like in your opinion?
Great, thank you so much for the question. Getting right to it, I think I will answer that in three parts. So for the first one, I think that, the pandemic definitely kicked in a very abrupt fashion, and, it lasted through the better part of 2020. So I think it's safe to say that it caught everybody off guard, and that most of us, be it businesses or consumers, didn't really see it coming. With respect to India in specific, we had a nationwide lockdown, which had offices shut through a significant duration throughout the summer. So students were definitely feeling very lost, considering a large population of students does indeed rely on consultancies for professional academic guidance. The norm at that time became telephonic counseling as well as emails. So students and counselors were mostly exchanging information in the format of telephone calls or emails. There were a lot of calls coming in, calls going out. Applications had to be made over email. Tracking had to be done over email. So it was a very tedious process in general. And obviously, when you have a counselor on the phone all the time, they may not be accessible to students who have already applied. So students were finding it hard to get in touch with the counselors as well. What this really resulted in was, a load of overburdened counselors as well as students who were just hassled in general. We launched iApply in Feb 2020, and iApply really came about as a one-stop virtual shop for students aspiring to study abroad. It can be thought of as a digital platform that enabled users to make and manage multiple applications to programs and institutes using one single profile, and something that was also accessible from the smart devices as well. The artificial intelligence, which is really the base of iApply, also guided students with respect to program selection. So, I think it's safe to say that for a large part, the counseling process was indeed undertaken by the software itself. And in essence, I would say that, iApply really brought forth a wholesome consultancy experience to students over their, mobile devices or their laptops or their tablets. Moving on to the second part, in terms of students loving the new technology, I think what students truly enjoyed was the convenience associated with a digital platform. So all of a sudden now, students are able to browse from over 10,000 programs, 200 institutes, each of them being listed in great detail, so that, students were still able to get all the important information they needed at a time when information became relatively inaccessible. Because, again, because offices were shut and, people were not responding at that time. So this was really one centralized place to get all the information they needed. iApply is also equipped with artificial intelligence, which allows students to track their applications in real time. So, for a student's perspective, following up on existing applications became much easier, rather than actually having to call or send messages or WhatsApp all the time. As well as from our point of view, I think managing student follow-ups through these new digital communication channels, really kind of made the entire process in a very, so to speak, it really streamlined the entire process. Overall, I would say that the flexibility provided to students, as well as, the ability for them to actually now just make applications sitting at home from their phones, is something that they truly enjoyed. Moving forward, I think that, with internet connectivity increasing across the globe, a digital revolution in every single industry is perhaps inevitable. So be it education consulting, be it, consumer products, every industry will see a digital revolution to a certain extent. With iApply, I think that students from metropolitan areas were the earliest adopters, and they were extremely adept at embracing this new technology. So that's really like when we started off in Feb, I think most of the people coming in were from southern metropolitan areas. But even though northern parts of India have been kind of, so to speak, laggard in a sense, but I think over the next 1 or 2 years, we will see these users and these residents embrace this kind of technology as well. From an institute's point of view, technologies like iApply really enable campuses to become more diverse, in the sense that we are now able to recruit students from regions where we were not, which were perhaps geographically inaccessible for us in the past. So with respect to, as campus becomes more and more diverse, I think institutes as well will prefer partners who are as well. And, just speaking generally for us, Canaan has been a leader in international education over the last 25 years, and we will definitely be spearheading innovation within this industry. And as well, our constant efforts in technology itself will also, enable us to roll out newer technology modules that will, really optimize the program selection as well as the application process in general for students in the future as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Ravin. My next question is to Dylan. Dylan, for both agencies and universities supporting students through the global pandemic by moving to a blended and online student experience has been key. This is the beginning of the future of education. Is technology here to stay? We at Canam have had parents readily join Zoom sessions such as these and join video calls with counselors for the one-to-many and one-to-one contact formats. Now, how should students and parents prepare to make the most of this situation?
Thanks, Ganga. Happy to answer that question. I think this is a key part of the topic area today about how has this impacted international recruitment. And, I think in many ways, students are in a situation now where, over the past year, they will have come across more and more focused online content, as well as more opportunities for live or, albeit virtual engagement by colleges and universities, much like this multi-day conclave that, the Canam's arranged. And while many institutions were probably already using online tools to connect to students, it definitely has not been to the extent that we've seen, take place over the last 9 months. So for students across India and their parents, and probably in particular, those who are outside of the major Indian metros, where those traditional in-person university recruitment fairs may not have historically been taking place, or maybe they were just not that frequent. The shift in efforts towards virtual events and fairs, webinars, and the other forms of messaging and engagement would have really been beneficial, I believe, in helping students discover and learn about universities and colleges that they may not otherwise have really been readily engaged with without this, emphasis on digital connectivity. One thing that probably has not changed is the impact that peer-to-peer connections can have for students as they finalize their choice of institution. And particularly with questions and uncertainty around, what this online or blended teaching experience will look like. A lot of potential students want to connect with current students and ask about their experience. And the technology, it really just makes it a lot easier. It can be through universities hosting regular drop-in Zoom sessions with staff and current students. Earlier, you mentioned you've done over 90 kind of webinars already, this past year. But even we're seeing universities embedding current student ambassador profiles with chat functions into their website, allowing students to directly connect at their own convenience. And it's a really great way to see how, this focus on technology is really kind of helping students connect in with other peers to ask those questions of what it's like to be on campus in this blended teaching environment. So for students currently looking at, their various options for future studies, whether that's a college or a university, undergrad or postgrad, I think in some ways the current kind of COVID-19 pandemic hasn't actually limited their opportunity to discover their best fit institution. But in fact, it's probably resulted in more information, more online digital content, but probably most importantly, more opportunities to engage with their prospective institutions in a way that they weren't able to a year ago.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. My question next goes to Marc-André. As a leading Canadian university recruiter, how has technology changed how students research potential universities to study at? Also, what makes University of Ottawa attractive to students in this search process?
Thank you, Ganja. I think this is a great segue question to follow up on what Dylan mentioned. And I'd like to start by saying that I completely agree with Ravin as well. He was saying in different terms, but the pandemic has definitely been a disruptor on all fronts, I think, for higher education and the rest of our lives. But it's also on the higher education front been an accelerator when it comes to bolstering technology to help us on the recruitment front. And I think that is very important. I think the key word here is accessibility, as Dylan has already mentioned. And so the students now have access to so many online search tools and recruitment platforms and agents willing to help them find the right fit university or college. And I think that's important. Like Raveen was saying, I think that the students in the metros have been the early adopters, but now I think it's quite fair to say that all students have adopted the new technology in order to help them find universities. Also, I think on the higher education front, the budgets that were used for traveling and doing in-person fairs has been reassigned to other initiatives, right? So whether it be paid targeting, targeted marketing, or communication strategies or communication campaigns, bolstered websites, virtual campus tours are now offered by most universities, virtual engagement events, so constant virtual presentations offered every week, and even online meetings that can be booked virtually. So all these things have been put in place, I think, by many universities during the pandemic to help them on their recruitment front. The second part of the question was, how does the university stand out? How does the University of Ottawa stand out? Well, I think it's the same things that helped the university stand out in the past. I don't think that changes. So the fact that we're located in downtown Ottawa, in Canada's capital, our ranking being in the top 1% of universities in the world, the fact that we are the largest bilingual French and English university in the world, and the quality of our education and student experience as well through, again, what was mentioned by Dylan. Let's not exclude the importance of word of mouth, even if we're in a digital world now. The students are asking other students on how they're experiencing the online learning. And I think at the University of Ottawa, we've worked really hard in the past. Online learning is not new to us, and we've just augmented and added to what the great work that we were already doing. And so I think that on that front, that's what helps us stand out. We have a great teaching and learning support services that guides our professors on helping them offer the best quality online learning. And we're part of a nonprofit group, which is called Quality Matters. And this is a nonprofit service which provides evidence-based and student-centered guidelines for the design and continuous improvement of online and blended hybrid courses. So we were part of this group even before the pandemic. So online learning is something that we know and that we do very well. And that, I think, has helped us stand out. I think that's it for me, Ganga.
Thanks,
Look
Mark.
forward to answering the questions.
Thanks, Mark. That brings me to Vinay. Vinay, you studied in Canada and now as an entrepreneur work very closely with a number of Canadian colleges, thereby reaching out to a large number of international students. Now, do you think technology-driven education, which one understands basically as online education, is of use to students who look for complete experience of living and working in a foreign country, pick up employability skills and alumni connections? What happens to the experiential learning format?
Thanks, Ganga. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. So I think you've asked me two questions. So give a perspective as a student, former student, and also as an entrepreneur. So let me try to answer both the parts separately. As a student, when I think as a student, there are four things that I'm looking for when I go abroad for education. Of course, there's the specialized education, which is relevant to the program that I'm taking. Then there are also general skills, which are valuable for a job, like communication skills, networking, report writing, working in teams. Then the third part is, especially which is very relevant for students who are going to Canada, is access to labor market, through those progressive immigration policies that Canada has to offer. And then the fourth part is the cultural context and the social context, which is clearly been diluted in this online situation. The rest of the three, I think, are completely intact. There's one component which, of course, is they're not getting as much as they would like to have, but this is not a perfect world right now. And honestly, I see a silver lining in all of this as well. That the way now I'm coming to as an entrepreneur, the way the industry is evolving, and I think Ravin mentioned about digital revolution in each industry. We are already seeing that happening. As an entrepreneur, I'm seeing that happening in my business. I'm sure you are also seeing it. You already explained, the changes that are happening in the recruitment sector. So I think this is going to continue. The gig economy is on the rise, and most entrepreneurs would like, or companies would like to access the talent, the best talent around the world, and the employees would like to be able to work for companies without having to travel. And this trend is only going to strengthen. And I think the silver lining here is that this experience, digital experience, which I definitely did not have at the time when I went for my MBA. I think this is going to definitely help all the students. I think the world has become a global village, and there are going to be always jobs which are customer facing. Over there, I think you have to get out there and meet as many people as possible. But I think the skills that the students are gaining right now, I'm really very excited that they are able to build relationships without meeting people. I don't know, I have to go and meet people before I can get on a call. But these students are able to do that. That is, I think, is quite exciting. I think their communication skills are going to be really good, get much better than people who can hide in a classroom, right? Here, there's nothing to hide. You have to be there, and the teachers are going to, the professors are going to call you out if you try to do that. They will also be able to, learn, get, those teamwork skills, in a virtual environment are much more difficult to get than, in face to face. So I think they are actually getting more. I do hope that, in few months, things get better and they are also going to experience the social context. But overall, I think that, this is a great thing that is happening. And I hope that the institutions are going to continue with a substantial part of the learning as online, because of the value addition that it brings in and how relevant it is to the future of the global economy.
Absolutely. In fact, even in recruitment, just this evening, Anuraj and I were talking that yes, we should have this conclave regardless of what situation goes back to. We should continue to have these kind of conclaves because they actually help everyone reach out to everyone else. Like you rightly said, global village. I think now truly is India. I mean, this whole situation, a global village. Thank you so much, Vinay. My next question goes to Bagir. Bagir, UCW is a business school for BBA and MBA programs. Shifting to online teaching for business subjects across different time zones would certainly have been overwhelming. Some students have not been very welcoming of the online mode, while others have been highly enthusiastic about it. What measures have you taken at UCW to help students not be challenged and yet carry on with the upward learning curve? Tell us something about some of the challenges as well as successes.
Thank you very much, Ganga. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think my colleagues pretty much already covered lots of aspects, and important one that occupies the front a part of every international student's mind. It is very important right now for us to understand what is it that the industry is heading towards to, and what is it that every institution we can do to make an international student's life a bit more easier, a bit more comfortable, and a bit more convenient in every move that they plan to make. So, so what is important here is to know that indeed, I like that term, a global village. That's something that students were planning and moving in their old orthodox way of traveling and joining in class sessions before, from one part of the planet to another. It's that distance no longer exists, and everything can be sort of obtained and achieved by a simple click of the computer and a PC or even as smartphones. We from our side here in University of Canada West fully comprehended the changes, and it was very important for us as well as for any other university to adjust to the what we call it right now a new reality, or now it's going to be turning into old new realities. It's very important that we were able to answer those challenges that occur to international students, and we have managed to come up with several steps to make sure that the international students, under the circumstances, under the certain pressure, they already feel more welcomed, and then we try to implement a few steps. The followings are what was already mentioned here by my colleagues, that albeit the network of internet coverage is getting more and more extensive, there's still certain places in India where internet coverage appears to be a problem. So what we have done from our side, we have ensured that we have distributed what we call an internet dongles to the students for free, who found it very challenging to study online, because once the pandemic kicked in, there was the situation where students were in where could no longer travel, and then we had to react to that and ensure to make sure that they put their mind to rest, that we're here to help them to step up in many ways. And one of the ways was distributing those dongles to the places, again, in where students were based in outskirts, in rural places where internet coverage obviously appears to be a problem. Another interesting point I'd like to highlight is, once you're an international student and you're an active online student, it's very important, because we are based in Canada, University of Canada West, I'd like to remind, based in Vancouver. We have come up with a very flexible online classes that helps cover the timeline suitable for international students across the world, whether that be from Africa, from South Asia, Southeast Asia, from Latin America, from Europe, from CIS countries, and so on. We have also ensured that we offer, and the international students have an access to what we call 24 hours help for online students. It was another step to ensure that the students have an assurance that anytime that they log in, they have someone from the other end ready to jump on it and try to fix the issues that the students might appear to have pretty much imminently. It's another interesting point, as this pandemic kicked in, and lots of students happen to be in financial restrictions, in financial difficulties, and we have, from our side, implemented a variety of scholarships that no doubt helped international students to benefit from that. Another interesting point that I would like to elaborate is, Ganga, is a supportive refund policy. We have come across the situations when pandemic came to an effect, and it was a little bit of obscurity for international students. Where do I stand, and how do I go about with this? And whilst we were inviting them to continue their education, or to start their education online, lots of questions occurred. And what if my study permit application would get refused whilst I'm already an online active student? So we have ensured that we give the assurance to every and each of international students that regardless of your visa outcome or study permit application outcome, if you're pretty much covered, and if you happen to be in an unfortunate situation where your visa is refused, your refund policy will be paid back fully. That's a very interesting point, and something that no doubt gave an immense assurance to every student. And we also have available online resources, UCW online libraries, that enable students to have an access 24/7. This is a massive informational or informative resources that boosted the desires and for our international students to study online, where they know for certain that they can get any information that's relevant to their programs in our 24/7 online libraries. Academic advisors as well. They're very approachable, very accessible for our international students. We have offered MS Office suitable for our international students and ensure that they have their online classes. The students have access to Microsoft Teams, which ensures a stable connectivity during the lectures. And another important aspect I'd like to emphasize that the students who are granted a study permit and they're prepared to travel, as soon as they happen to be in Vancouver, they are granted what we call a financial support, the financial relief for our international students. We grant them $650 of vouchers, which no doubt helps every international traveler to utilize for accommodation purposes first and foremost. And it's important to note that we have been working, Ganga, very closely with the government to make sure that all international students get the support wherever they need, and the Canadian government were also supportive, and we are all witnessing this. It's important to mention that University of Canada West were one of the first institutions who were on that list COVID-19 readiness plan. So what I would like to highlight here, Ganga, as well, and given that we have been very quick and adjusting to what we call new realities and ensure that we went extra mile for our international students. As a result, the last two intakes of University of Canada West were exceptional numbers wise. It only says that University of Canada West adjusted so well, realized where the whole trend is going into, and ensured that every and each of the students have their support. And again, as a result, as I said, we had a very exceptional number-wise intakes, both fall and this January intake. Thank you. Thank you, Ganga.
Thank you, Bagir. My next question is now to Simon. Simon, education systems in different countries around the world differ to a greater or lesser extent from the education system in the host country. So it's unreasonable to expect students from one education system to progress seamlessly into another. Now, that's what pathway programs are for, to prepare international students to be able to perform at least on par with domestic students, if not better. Now, how do you see technology changing the future of your pathway programs, and what is your advice to students?
Okay, thank you, Ganga, and good evening, everybody. As you say, pathway programs were initially set up to give students a softer landing at university, particularly when traveling in from overseas. Going to a new country is obviously a challenge in itself. So learning all the things that you take for granted at home. How do you get a mobile phone? Where do you find the food you want? How do you open a bank account? But you add into that the concept of studying in what is also an entirely alien environment and a whole new way of learning, potentially. It can be very tricky, especially if it's the first time away from home, or maybe you're 16, 17, 18 years old. So a pathway is there to enable that transition, but not just academically, socially, pastorally too. But with the changing, with the technological advances and changing student mindsets as well, and the changing demands of the workplace. I mean, the future workplace is going to be a very different workplace to that your parents went into, that we're in now. So pathway programs have had to adapt to adopt technologies that exist to make that student journey even more accessible or even more attractive. And they'll have to continue to do so. It's a constantly evolving environment. So this started before the pandemic. COVID had really pushed it forward. So the same way that war advances the technology, COVID has made us pathway providers think about how we can make that student experience even better for you, the student. For example, there are options now for students to, you could start an element of your studies online before you embark abroad in a supported environment. Often, if you're studying online, you'll be doing that on time zones. You may be studying on a Canada time zone, for example, which doesn't necessarily work if you're in India. As a pathway student, might have wraparound classes when you're physically at university, But how does that work when you're sat in your living room or on the dining table doing your online studies before you go? So, for example, having studies on your own time zone. So yes, you may be taught by academics in Canada, for example, but you're having it on your time zones. So we've got a product called Unismarter or Navitas. It means that students, you start your first studies online before you progress on to Canada or Australia or the UK. But what you also have at the same time is Indian academics available online to help you. So providing support on things like getting to grips with language difficulties, accents, foreign ways of studying that may not be particularly, you might not be used to, and all the expectations that come with that as well. So you're not left to your own devices and expected to study a foreign curriculum with international academics. You've got all of that, but what you have at the same time is somebody from India being able to help you at the same time. One of the big concerns for all the students going abroad is, am I going to meet people? Am I going to make friends? Am I going to settle in? You know, particularly for a pathway student, now you can do it all remotely. You do that in advance of learning. You meet your classmates online. So all those anxieties, all those worries that might affect your studies when you actually get into country, they're gone, they vanished. It means you can focus on your studies. So in terms of advice, you asked that question. My advice would be, don't accept the norm. See what's available, see what's out there, research it. If there's a subject you're interested in or something you're passionate about, there will be a pathway for it. And that doesn't have to be the traditional way of studying. It could be blended, it could be partly online. The workplace of the future, as I said before, is going to be a very, very different place. And that begins a university, potentially with a pathway too. But my advice especially would be to speak to the experts, speak to people like Canaan. They work with a whole number of pathway providers, universities. They can really find the right thing that's just right for you.
Thank you, Simon. That was really interesting. Now, our audience today has been amazing. So I've just picked up one of the very good questions. And this is open to any of the panelists who wishes to answer. Sorry. Some parents, in fact, a few parents have asked this question, so I've just reworded it myself. They ask as to why there's been no tuition fee reduction among Canadian universities and colleges despite the students studying a semester online. Here's your chance to explain this to the students and parents today.
Maybe I can go ahead. I represent a university as well, like my colleague Begier, but there's been some reduction in the fees at the University of Ottawa when it comes to auxiliary fees. So whether the fees related to access to our sports services and other services offered strictly on campus. When it comes to the tuition fees, decision was made not to reduce the fees because the cost related to the quality of the education that is still being offered is still the same. We've bolstered the technology as well, which gives access to online labs. And so everything is being offered at the same level of quality, but slightly differently online. And that's why the decision at the University of Ottawa specifically has been to not reduce the tuition fees, but to manage and reduce the associated and auxiliary fees. I think that has been the reality for many universities around the world.
If I may, Ganga, just to support my colleague Mark Andre here, is if indeed, so it's pretty much covered, but if the tuition fee per se was not changed, but the lots of universities realizing how difficult the life basically for international students, we, as I think I've mentioned this, we have implemented different types of scholarships. We have waived the application fee for international students. We have also, as I said, implemented the ones for travel or different types of financial relief. So I think overall, if the tuition fee didn't down, but generally the cost of a tuition fee for international students has certainly changed for the better for them. Thank you.
Ganga, let me also bring in a different perspective, a business perspective, again, as an entrepreneur. To be honest, and I have a lot of regard for Canadian institutions. Almost all of them are publicly funded, and they don't really work. And there's a couple of privates, but the mindset for education, delivery in Canada is completely different from what you see in India, where it's more dominated by private players. And that's where the expectations of parents are that these private players, they have been they're working for money, and they need to now spend more. Whereas with Canadians, generally these institutions are not really working for money. If they have profits, they are reinvested in the community at all times. They exist to serve the community, and that is why it is really difficult for them, especially in a difficult year like where the enrollments have gone down. They had to invest more in technology. They had to retrain all their faculty. So the costs are all-time high. The revenues are all-time down. It's really difficult for them to really, and still they are trying to work around and provide some additional support to students. And that's where the parents need to understand. Of course, there are going to be savings because a lot of students are not paying for accommodation. They're not paying for the cost of living in a country. So there are students did benefit from that. And what parents need to understand is that this is something that is not being planned. It's not an online delivery of education that we are doing. It's a full-time face-to-face learning that these institutions have been built for. And it cannot be that overnight they can just reduce all their costs, because eventually the students want to come there. They don't want them to sell off their infrastructure or reduce all their some of the support services on the campus. So I think it is in the interest of parents as well that we just try and share some of that pain. And as I said, there are benefits of that as well. But from a business perspective also, if parents think about their own businesses, I am sure they will appreciate that what a tough, difficult time the institutions are going through. And hopefully these are going to be the prospective of future alma maters of these students. And it is in their own interest that they continue to be viable and continue to provide that high quality education.
Absolutely, Vinay. I totally agree with you. And in fact, we've heard of so many new initiatives that were taken by the universities and colleges, like many of you listed so much. So all that doesn't come really free of cost. I mean, I've even heard about universities organizing career fairs, online career fairs for students. Like universities have really, really gone out of their way to do a hell of a lot, using a lot of technology. I mean, honestly, all that, I mean, it's all hidden cost, actually. I mean, you may not really see it, but it's all there. So, and like Vinay said, eventually students are going to be in person. Vaccines are being rolled out. We do see some hopes, and we do see students being able to go. In fact, students, like, visas are open, and students have got visas, and students have gone to Canada as well. So yes, you said it is a difficult time, so everybody needs to be sharing a little bit of the burden at least. So yeah, absolutely. Now, the one more question from the audience, I think I'll have time for. Disturbed sleep patterns, postural effects, emotional issues like anxiety, depression, digital eye strain seem to be the negative effects of technology. Do you see how these can be or already being addressed amongst your students across time zones to help them fit in seamlessly within the hybrid modes of learning? Mark, Andre, would you like to?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm just going to say, I mean, I'm not going to be able to speak from a specific institution perspective, but, as someone myself, kind of going back to conversations on how the workplace has changed, I haven't been in an office in a year. This is how I do most of my work, and I get it. It can be really tough. And I, as a student, like I studying, putting in long hours and working part-time jobs, so I have to work in late night. It is a big balance. And one of the things that this, situation that we're all in is forcing a lot of people, not just students, but professionals as well, to look at is how you manage time, how you take that way to step off from the computer. For me, I try to do like an hour walk at least a day just to kind of get out and clear my head, and finding ways to adapt that suits you and is effective for you. So I think these are actually like true life skills and soft skills that will take you kind of everywhere. But going back to, you know, what Simon said about services and what Mark mentioned as well, is that a lot of universities are really dedicating time and effort to providing these student services and supports from, I know institutions where the advisors are now working, you know, not the 9 to 5 that they would have, but on off hours. So there's somebody around to be available around the world for students, other care programs. So I think it's important for students, if they're, you know, feeling inundated by stress or these pressures, to reach out and talk to their advisors, and perhaps by having a little bit of anonymity by reaching out digitally and not physically walking into their classroom or into their office hours, might make more students reach out. And that's the key thing, is take advantage of these supports and services, because it's in everyone, the institution, the agent, the parent, student's best interest that you are successful. Yeah.
I'd like to maybe add to that. I think you're completely right. I think the success of students is our main priority. I think in most of our institutions, if not all. Here, you know, one of the mental health is a topic that's on top of mind for many. Here at the university, we're offering online virtual counseling to the students. So even if they're abroad, they have access to these free services. I think that the online format was sort of abrupt introduction to the globalized world that we live in for students. I think that you know, they're having to adjust rapidly to what some of the professionals like ourselves have been doing for a good number of years. So waking up at 6 a.m. to participate in this type of conclave, for example. So the students are having to live the experience of working in a globalized world and participating with partners in 4 different time zones, for example. And so, like Dylan mentioned, these skills are definitely transferable to the real life in the workplace. They do cause stress, but students have to work in order to establish ways to, for example, combat these elements, like going out for a walk. Taking time for oneself is very important. We offer these types of trainings as well with senior students on time management and etc. So the services are out there. Reach out. Most often they are free. So the students need to reach out and use these services. We put a lot of resources in order to help our students succeed. It's just up to the student to take that extra step and ask for that help, because the help is there. Dylan is absolutely right.
After listening to our impressive panelists today, we can conclude that the effective use of digital learning tools in classrooms and a combination of synchronous and asynchronous sessions can increase student engagement, help teachers improve their lesson plans, and actually facilitate personalized learning. It also helps students build essential 21st century skills, as a large percentage of employers shift to the work from home format. Are these the positive outcomes of technology-driven education? Should we open up our minds and embrace technology as a part of the educational journey? These are points to think about and prepare for the future by parents and students alike. So your individual questions will certainly be answered by our counselors. And if you've given your contact details, we urge you to register and attend our next panel discussion, which is at 6:30 p.m. this evening. Undergrad students, how to choose the right option, pathways, direct bachelor's, associate degrees, and diplomas. Do join in, and we look forward to meeting you there. And thank you a million times to all our panelists.
Thank you so much, Ganga.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you all. Sharon, would you make sure that you save on the chat?
Yes, ma'am.